Hey everybody, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I'm back with a new layout and process video for Hip Kit Club, and I'm using the 2019 September kits again. And I'm going to be making a mixed media layout today using these Dear Lizzie stamps. They're from the She's Magical collection, and we get those in the kits this month. And then I went back to several past color kits and pulled out almost all of the Lindy's sprays that we have received from those kits, and I'm going to create sort of a rainbow design using this cute little rainbow stamp, but I'm not going to use it as a rainbow. I'm going to use it as a scallop. So all I'm going to do is spray some of this ink onto some plastic and then smudge the stamp around and then just start to stamp on this textured white cardstock. I haven't used any gesso or anything like that. I just wanted to try this out and see how it looked. And I love that it's kind of splotchy and messy, and each one looks a little bit different. Some of them have more ink, some of them have less, but I thought this little rainbow would make a very cool scallop. So I'm going to use some dark pink, some lighter pink, yellow, green, and blue. So kind of a rainbow color scheme here. And I'm just going to do one row of each color. And yeah, this is not going to be a perfectly stamped image because I'm not using an actual ink pad, and I was going for a messy, splotchy look just like this because I was in the mood to just kind of create a random background with an interesting shape, and so this was perfect. And I'm using a very old stamping block. Yeah, you can see there it's very stained. I've probably been using it for over 10 years, and it still works great, but since I was using liquids and the actual stamp is very thin and kind of flimsy, like you can move each of those little arcs around. It's not one solid stamp. Some of the liquid would get underneath the stamp and it started to slip and slide around, so I had to take everything off and dry it and then put it back on the stamping block. But it wasn't a big deal, but yeah. Anyway, so I finished all the colors, and I think that turned out really cool. It's something different, and it's a fun way to use that stamp other than just a rainbow. But I'm still creating rainbows, but just in a different way, I guess you could say. So I thought about leaving that as is on the textured cardstock, but then I thought I'm in the mood to do some fussy cutting. I want to cut each of these strips out and layer them kind of like they are now, but I want to be able to ruffle up the edges and make it a little bit more textured. So I pulled out some of the thick white cardstock, and I'm going to go with that as my background. And I'm going to choose to scrap this cute black and white picture of my daughter. And I feel like the black and white's a good choice because it's going to pop against all the colors that I'm going to use. And then it's also going to make all the colors pop. So I found this paper strip. It's from one of the Dear Lizzie papers. It's the branding strip, and I thought that I would use that as sort of a topper for all of these scalloped pieces. And excuse me, I thought about starting at the very top of the page, but then I thought I wanted to leave a little bit of a gap and just go from there. So I'm gonna glue down each strip, and I'm gonna make them kind of wonky and crooked so they're not perfectly straight, and layer each one underneath the previous one, and so that way I can ruffle up the edges and it's going to create some fun texture. And then the more I got going, the more I thought, what am I going to add at the very top since I've got this white open space? So I'm going to come back to that later, but yeah, I just was challenging myself to do something different. You know, and I feel like this layout is different, but it was fun to make. So I'm going to put the photo kind of on the left side of the page, and then I'm going to do some mixed media kind of underneath where the photo is going to go. So I'm going to add some clear gesso on that part of the layout, and I did add a little bit of clear gesso on the top white strip also. And I realized that I hadn't used any of these Dear Lizzie frames that we get in the kit. So I'm going to use 2 of those today, but I am going to do some mixed media. So I am going to go with the same colors that I used to create the scallops, and then do just a little bit of pink up here at the top. And then I'm going to do some blue and some yellow down beneath all the scallops. And I just like the way that looks. It gives something to that big white strip to break up the whiteness of it. And then I'm going to do some blue down below where the photo is going to go, because the photo is going to overlap some of the scallops, but you're still going to be able to see some on the left and then a lot more of it on the right of the photo once it's there. But yeah, I just wanted this to be kind of a soft blue to match the color that's in the frames and the colors that's in the scallops. And so I'm just going to keep going. I'm adding some of the color, I'm adding some water, and you can see that the color is easily blendable and spreadable because I use the gesso. And before it dries, and even after it dries pretty soon, I can still reactivate it with some water and continue to let it kind of smudge and blend. And that's the beauty and the magic of gesso. It just allows you to do so much more with your paints and your watercolors there. So yeah, this is just water, the brush, and the color. My fingers just kind of smudging here and there, and just keep working at it until I get it exactly how I want it. And the paper is going to warp a little bit. I think I've talked about that in several layouts recently. You know, I get lots of questions about, do your papers ever warp and how do you flatten those out? And the answer to that is yes, they warp every single time. It's just the nature of paper, because this isn't any special watercolor paper. It's just thick textured cardstock, and the gesso does help, but it does warp. And when that happens, I just try to let it dry as best I can, and then I just lay something really flat and heavy on top of it overnight, and that does help it. It doesn't ever come completely flat. It always is going to have some ripples in it, or the edges may curl up, but that doesn't bother me. You know, I expect that to happen because it is paper, and I do add a lot of water to it. But yeah, it does flatten out a little bit, but you know, don't stress out about it if your papers warp. And I know a lot of people don't do mixed media layouts because they don't like the paper to warp, and that's fine. You know, if you don't want to even have to deal with that, then, you know, this layout could be done completely without the mixed media. And so it's just whatever you like. And, you know, I like making videos to give people ideas. You know, you may not like the layout when it's completely finished, but you may like some of the ideas or some of the things that I did in the layout. So it may give you a new idea to do something completely different. And so, you know, that's my goal, is just to inspire people to get ideas to try. And yeah, it's always fun. Okay, so I'm going to work with these two frames here now that I've got my background pretty much finished. And I want to kind of crookedly put the picture in that blue floral frame. I don't want it completely behind it. I'm going to kind of tuck the left corner underneath it, and then the right side is going to kind of overlap the photo, or I'm sorry, the frame. And then I'm just going to go to tucking and layering here. I've pulled out some of the Pocket Life cards. I pulled out a piece from the Paige Evans Truly Grateful, that green piece. It's from the journaling spots, but I'm just going to tuck it under and use it as a layer. And then I've really been wanting to use this cute little pink and purple owl die cut from Pretty Little Studio. And so I'm going to use it today because I feel like it matches and it's just so cute. And then I'm going to use some of these Dear Lizzie iridescent stickers. I'm going to use these two tags and kind of stick them kind of underneath the right side there. And I'm going to come back later and punch holes and put some cord through those holes. But I really like all these layers and different colors, and I'm trying to just kind of use things that have the same colors that are in the scallops and just try to, you know, scatter the color all around the layout. And I know I talk about layouts where I've done tone on tone. This is not one of those layouts. This one is a little more challenging to do a tone on tone because I don't really have big chunks of color to layer things on top of. And so this is a case where I'm going to scatter the colors all over the place. I do have chunks of color on the background, but, you know, I'm not going to really put a bunch of pink things up on the pink section up top or anything like that. So, yeah, I like to do tone on tone, but I also like to scatter the colors around. So that's what I'm going to do on this page. So I got all of the layers behind the picture you know, attached, and then I'm going to add some foam behind it because I still want to raise everything up off the page. That's going to create some fun dimension and just make it look a little more, have a little more depth and not so flat. And I'm going to trim just a little bit of this white border off of the owl to make it a little even. It was a little bit thicker on one side than the other. And I'm just going to stick him or her on top of the photo there on the left side or the right side. And then I thought that I would soften up a little bit of the background. It was looking just a little too harsh around the edges. I don't like harsh edges. I like it to be soft and hazy. So I'm just going to come in with some white gesso and smudge a little bit over that, and that's going to help soften up the edges. All right, so here are the 2 tags that I peeled from that Dear Lizzy sticker sheet, and I'm just going to punch some holes in the end of the tag, because whenever I use tags, I just feel like they need to be finished off with some cord or some ribbon or some string, and I love that look. And so I'm going to do that with these 2. This is just some cord from my stash. I think I bought a giant roll of that at Michael's years ago, and I'm still using it. So, and I'm going to wind up trimming that a little bit, but for now I'm just going to leave it as is and continue to work on stuff. And the reason I put my picture on the left side is because her face is facing the right, and it looks like she's kind of looking toward the right. And so I want it to look like she is looking across the page. So I fussy cut out that floral cluster from that Big Pocket Life card, and now I'm just going to add some thread. I pulled out all of the 5 colors that I used, and I'm going to layer in some of the blue there on the left, along with some of that minty green color. I did put some yellow over on the right. And then I'm going to tuck that floral cluster right there. And I feel like it's perfect because it has all the colors that I use, including that deep, darker pink color. And I felt like I needed to bring in a little bit more of that color. The very first scallop, you can see it's that dark pink. And I have some thread to match, so I'm going to add in a little bit of that right there underneath that floral cluster. So that's going to help tie in that dark pink color down to that part of the layout. And so from here, I'm going to go ahead and glue down the thread. I'm going to glue down the picture because I know that that part is done. And I let it sit for a little bit. I put something heavy on top of it because it was warping, so I just let it dry. And then once it dried, I did some stitching. Yeah, I did some very close zigzag stitching, and I did change the thread out to match every color that I had, and I just did it at the very top of that border. And I was very pleased that I kind of did it in a straight line because my stitching is never really straight. And I was struggling with a title, and then I looked at this September Pocket Life card and realized that they had all the letters to my daughter's name. So I thought, oh, I could use her name using these small letters, and they all matched. Her name is Reese, and so yeah, I'm going to go simple with the title, and it's going to be Hey Reese. Sometimes I just like to go simple, and I wanted to mix and match, and so I pulled out those iridescent big white puffy thickers for the word hey, and then yeah, I just lucked out with the letters of her name working in September there, so that's going to make that a little bit easier. And then I'm going to use this die cut here that says You Amaze Me. And that is the Seafoam Minty Green color. And I'm going to tie in some of the blue with this little banner strip from a Pocket Life card. Here's where I'm going to try to pull all the colors in down here to this bottom cluster. So I've got some blue, some pink, some green. And then I noticed that there were 2 of the little rainbow stickers on that Dear Lizzy sticker sheet. I'm going to use those, but I'm going to flip them upside down to mimic the scallop pieces. So yes, they're rainbows, but I'm not going to use them as rainbows. I'm going to use them as scallops underneath that green piece. And then I'm going to add a little bit more thread down there. I couldn't decide what color. I decided to go with the blue. And I'm going to tuck that underneath the die cut there. And I did add some foam to that to pop it up off the page. And then here are these 2 little rainbows. But I feel like those were cute because they mimicked the scallops up at the top. And so I've got all the colors kind of pulled down to the bottom. And I am going to add this yellow flower. I felt like I needed a little pop of yellow, and I thought about doing it to the left of the R, but I wind up putting it right there by the Y. And then my journaling is going to go in this little space here. And I like to use my T-square ruler because there is a 100% chance that my journaling will be either downhill or uphill, and it will ruin the whole thing. So that's one thing I do like to have straight, is my journaling. So I use my ruler for that, and then I'm using a black fine tip Sharpie for my journaling. And I do add the date stamp off camera, and I do add 2 more little stickers up at the top, but that's pretty much it. I love how this turned out. I think it was fun to try. It was definitely different. I love using the Lindy sprays with the stamps. It was something fun to try, and I like the messy, you know, whatever you want to call that, results. It's something, you know, unique and different to try. So you don't always have to use ink pads for your stamps if you're looking to create a fun, messy background. Try sprays, or try something besides the inks. You know, you get a whole different look, a whole different effect. But yeah, here are all the close-ups. You know me, I take a gazillion close-ups, but anyway, I like to show all the detail up close. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you got some ideas to try. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great week. I will see you next time.